unique, and even genius insight? Or is what's being communicated just weird and freaky? Misunderstandings, anxiety over not being able to clearly express yourself. Can you be patient and wait to be invited to share what you know? A busy mind, not wanting to be interfered with. These are all pressures and qualities that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for November 10th to 16th, 2025 bring. Hello, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast with me, Margot Fraser. I mentioned last cycle that we've moved into quarter 4, the quarter of mutation in the Human Design year, and would be kicking off with 4 cycles of Sun-Earth activations in the individual circuitry. This means that mutation, the potential to know, and empowerment will be themes. We now move into the second of these 4 cycles. It all begins on November 10th at 5:42 p.m., going until November 16th at 7:49 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Universal time coordinates, that's coming in November 11th at 12:42 a.m., going until the 16th at 2:49 p.m. So remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun-Earth activations as that 70% of the conditioning field. We have one of those special Sun-Earth combinations that creates a channel. So I'll talk about the individual gates first and then the channel themes. We have the Sun moving into gate 43, the trait of insight and breakthrough in the Ajna center. That's the seat of the mind where all our mental thought processes occur, our analyzing, our comparing, our realizations, and so on. Its keynote says, in order for achievement to be maintained, a new order must be fairly established. Now, achievement for the 43rd gate is the ability to explain the knowing that comes in. If you can't properly explain the knowing, then this trait is going to give a sense of not feeling that it's achieved. Individuality is all about bringing through something new and mutative. With this activation, there's the possibility for you to gain a sudden awareness, that spontaneous individual knowing, that insight, or not. Now, that insight may or may not be of value to others. This is also the gate of the inner ear, the voice in the head, so to speak. This is the inner acoustic mind. It's one of the 3 gates of deafness. So we may not hear each other as well this cycle. Individual traits can attract attention and they can attract rejection, especially here if you can't explain yourself. Therefore, with this activation present, you could also experience anxiety that no one knows what you mean. Learning how to communicate so that you can develop the skills necessary to explain yourself is really important with the individual traits, and especially for those of you that have this trait in your design. The process of explaining your knowing to yourself and then to others does take time and patience. It's one thing to have a knowing, and it's another to be able to explain it and explain it to others. You can't explain it to yourself. You're not going to be able to explain it to others. And if you can't explain it, it's going to be frustrating for you and rejected by others. So you really have to delve into that knowing and really get it yourself. Gate 43 is being grounded in the Earth's position. Gate 23, the trait of assimilation in the throat center. This is the voice that says, I know, and then explains its knowing, or I don't know. Its keynote says amorality, the awareness and understanding which leads to the acceptance of diversity. Why does it say amorality? That's because individuality is about knowing or not knowing. It has nothing to do with morality. It's just what comes through. Morality is something that exists within the collective and the tribe. Because it's individual, it's bringing through something unique, something new. And in explaining that knowing, sometimes it can be offensive to the collective or the tribe. It's something that's going to undermine the current status quo. As a result, that knowing and the explanation could be rejected or could be accepted. This is the trait of assimilation, and that can refer to the process of assimilating into the collective, right? I'm not so different. I'm like you, right? When individuality is meant to be a little different, a little weird, a little freaky. But when you assimilate into the collective, then it's more likely to be accepted when you express your insight to them. Assimilation also refers to the process of assimilating all of the insights of Gate 43 into something that can be expressed. So with this activation present, there's the possibility to be able to assimilate and express your mental insights in a way that others can get it. Remember that even when you have your explanation ready, you need to wait to be invited and follow your strategy and authority to know when the timing is right to provide it. Then it will be to the right people at the right time. More often, though, what we see is that the insights, the knowings are just blurted out. And so it's to the wrong people at the wrong time. And just a little side note that the knowing ultimately is about knowing who you are and why you are. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, when we look at the Sun-Earth positions together, they create a channel that, of course, is going to be here then for the full cycle. So let's take a look at that. Remember that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So they are worldwide. Everyone's going to have, as a result as well, the Ajna and the throat centers activated. So it has a big impact, especially on those of you that in your own design have an undefined Ajna or an undefined throat center. This is creating the channel of structuring, a design of individuality. The individual circuitry operates in those pulses of knowing that can bring that mutation. It's not about making sense of experiences like the abstract mind or trying to come up with theories and formula to carry us into the future like the logical mind. It's a knowing in the now that comes through in a pulse. I don't know. We affectionately call this channel genius to freak. This is where the individual insights are structured in a way that they can be clearly explained to others. When invited and then expressed, that insight can really be seen as genius, creating mutation through bringing a new perspective. That's the opportunity that this channel brings. However, if that insight is just blurted out, uninvited, or you haven't finished that process of structuring and it can't be clearly explained, it's just going to seem weird and freaky. What are you talking about? Others aren't going to be open to it and it's likely to be rejected. No one's going to be paying any attention to it. Therefore, there can't be any mutation. It's not going to spread, which defeats the whole process of the individual circuitry. And of course, that doesn't feel good either. Now, in the not-self world, what happens when you don't think you're being heard? You start talking louder, you start yelling, and no one knows what you're talking about. It just gets more and more annoying. So we're likely to see some of that in this cycle. Remember that Gate 43 is one of the traits of deafness, so there could be a lot of miscommunications and misunderstandings this cycle as a result. Can you see that not self cascade, blurting out insights that can't be fully explained or without being invited, usually out of the ego need to be recognized, getting ignored, so talking louder, and both sides getting irritated and annoyed. So expect to see some of that in the collective this cycle. But if you wait with your own knowings for those correct invitations, or you feel that someone knows something that could be of benefit to you and you invite them to share, and they do, you may really give or get, respectively, some mind-opening insights that give a whole new perspective to a problem. A reminder here that the individual traits can pulse into melancholy. In this case, it would be a mental melancholy, which is different from the physical melancholy that the gates and the channels in the body bring. From the outside, someone who's dropped into mental melancholy can often seem just fine. They're going about their day. But the 4323, this channel of structuring, has a deep theme around the happiness or sadness in life. And the anxiety of the mental melancholy, if it comes in, is about the needing to know why the sadness is there. Well, with this channel activation, it can bring a pressure to know. So there can be a challenge in letting go of the actual need to know and simply being present to what is. We have no control, again, over whether the pulse of knowing is going to come in or not. And obsessing over needing to know and the anxiety that can bring is not going to be helpful. So if you notice that kind of anxiety cropping up in your mind, perhaps it will help to remind yourself that it's not the mind that runs your life. It's following your strategy and authority. So it's always important that action isn't taken out of the mental processes and the mind's anxieties and pressures. We have 2 channels being created by transits of the moon this cycle. So they're just little samplers of the frequencies, as the moon only activates a gate or a trait for about 10 or 11 hours, give or take. Both are activating the Ajna, so that's going to accentuate having a busy mind this cycle. The first comes in November 11th at 8:16 p.m., going until the 12th at 6:37 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. UTC coming in November 12th at 3:16 a.m., going until 1:37 p.m. We have the moon moving into gate 4, the trait of answers, connecting with its electromagnetic gate 63, the trait of doubt in the head center. That one's being activated by the north node of the moon. Together, they create the channel of logic, a design of mental ease mixed with doubt. Logic is part of the overall collective circuitry that's all about finding those patterns and formula to carry us into the future. If I do A, B, and C, I will consistently and reliably get X result, whatever that is. This channel is the start of the mental logic process. It all starts with being suspicious of and doubting the patterns that currently exist. I'm doing this, and this, but I'm not getting that result. Something's wrong. This is the scientific mind. Once you've expressed your doubt, it opens the door for potential answers through that gate 4, the trait of formalization, the trait of answers. If there's nothing that you're doubting at the time, the mind's going to be at ease. When some pattern, some method or formula doesn't seem to be working, the pressure of doubt will come in and the process of coming up with potential answers begins. As those potential answers are expressed, well, this channel has done its job and can go back to mental ease. When this channel is present, there's the potential to find answers to your doubt. Just remember that these are only potentials at this point. This isn't the full process yet. Nothing should be grabbed onto as the answer. It will definitely support, though, any planning or analytical thinking that you do need to do. Our next channel comes in on November 14th at 1:18 a.m., going until 12:15 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. UTC coming in on the 14th at 8:18 a.m., going until 7:15 p.m. We have the moon activating gate 47, the trait of oppression and realization in the Ajna center. It's connecting with its electromagnetic, gate 64, the trait of confusion in the head center that's being activated by the south node of the moon. Together, they create the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity mixed with clarity. This is where the mental process of making sense of our experiences occurs. The puzzle pieces are being put together to have those realizations, those ahas. It's a tough mental process. So as the keynote says, it brings a busy mind and the potential for mental clarity. Those ahas can be shared with others when they come through, and in turn, that may support those others in their own making sense process. So this brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases, so your not self mind could start to think they're part of you, even when it's not something you have in your own design. When that transit leaves, that can be confusing to the mind. Like, where'd that go? What happened there? We do have a stable transit field with no gate or line changes this cycle, although Jupiter will go retrograde on the 11th. I'll go through their current positions and qualities. The nodes, well, they're about what we see in the world and what's in our environment. This is generally going to bring an environment of people sharing with each other as we have two collective traits. We just saw both of these, gate 63 and 64, as part of the moon transit channels. Generally, with the north node in gate 63, we'll see the doubt in the world, the places where things aren't working and the patterns that don't seem to be reliable. It's going to bring an air of suspicion and noticing where things just aren't logical. You may also notice this expressing as self-doubt. Sometimes it gets turned inwardly. With the south node in gate 64, the trait of confusion, we're in an environment where people are trying to make sense of things and where there can be this confusion. The puzzle pieces aren't fitting together. The doubt and confusion together can really bring through good questions that inspires the rest of the mental logic and abstract circuitry, respectively. Ultimately, it can bring the potential to raise consciousness. Or not. Now, these are sitting in the sixth line, and sixth lines can really transcend the doubt and confusion to trust the process. But they can also bring this not living out the trait unless you can see that the full process can really be completed. For gate 63, line 6 is called nostalgia. Six lines don't often get really good answers to their questions, but it can bring this remembering of a time in the past when you really did get a great answer to a doubt that you had. The question is, can you just enjoy the remembrance, but then turn your attention back to the present to notice what's not logical now? Or will you get caught up in the nostalgia of that time when that great answer was received? With this line present in our environment, you may notice that answers to doubts are met with references to past times when they already knew that answer, right? Some answer comes out. It's like, oh, the Egyptians knew that years ago. There will also be a tendency to get caught up in the nostalgia and sharing about how things were better back at some past time. Or when are we going to get back to, whenever that time was, instead of being open to potential new answers and new ways forward. For gate 64, line 6 is called victory. This can bring a quality to the environment of this confidence that things will eventually make sense. But more likely we'll see the detriment play out where people are caught up in the confusion, actually in a way enjoying the confusion and not wanting to resolve it. They'd rather just stay in it instead of trying to make sense of it. Jupiter, with its quality of expansion, is in gate 62, the trait of detail in the throat center. It's part of the mental logic circuitry and expresses, I think, whatever that is, or I don't think. It's in line 5 and is going to have an extended stay in this line as Jupiter goes retrograde on the 11th. The 5th line is called Metamorphosis, and it has a developmental theme that says when excellence is achieved, action is necessary. When I've got all the details and facts in place, I need to express them. That's the action. This is going to bring the pressure to delve into the details and only share with others when the facts and details are in place and organized. The ultimate purpose of any collective circuitry is to better things for humanity. So I don't want to express those theories or what I think until I really have all my facts and details in place. The expansive nature of Jupiter can come through this delving into the details. Now, 5th lines are always projected on that they can provide whatever the trait is. So with this being in the transit field, there's going to be a tendency for us to project on each other that, oh, I know you have all the details. Tell me what they are. But it has a developmental theme. It takes time to get all the details and facts organized for expression. There's always a need for 5th lines to manage expectations. So managing expectations around what details you have or not is going to be important while this line is in the field. If expectations are not managed, expect to be called out for not having the facts and details that others expected. This is also the trait of naming things. So if you need to come up with a name for something, this could be a really helpful quality to have in the field. Jupiter will expand this quality. Always to keep in mind that the mental processes and the facts and details may not actually pan out to be true. Saturn, with its constraints, its consequences, its discipline and limitations, is sitting in gate 36, the trait of crisis. That's part of the abstract experiential circuitry. Crisis here is not having the experience yet, being that novice. It's continued its retrograde, and just before this cycle started, it moved into line 3 called transition. It has a developmental theme, so we learn this over time, that says the point at which decline has exhausted its power. You're not going to be a novice forever as you go through the experience. While its exaltation highlights the adaptability of the 3rd line and speaks to being able to endure and embrace the changes necessary in moving into something new and let the old drop away, this is another line. We saw this with the 5th line, the 4th line, 3rd line, same thing. We only have the detriment present in the world. The detriment says the tendency in renewal to try to assimilate the remains of the old order into the new, with the risk that it may rise against the new order once it has regained its strengths. The embrace of change, but with feelings that will not let go of them. So for example, let's say you moved into a management position from a staff position. There's going to be the crisis of learning all the new that goes with that management position. However, if you then try to also be doing the staff tasks while managing the staff, or you're trying to relate to your staff as though you're still a staff member too, trying to recapture that feeling of camaraderie rather than relating to them as the manager, it's likely to not go well. You're going to create some new crises. All right, Uranus, with its unusualness, its revolution and sidetracking qualities, is in gate 8, the trait of contribution. This is part of the individual circuitry in the throat center and has the voice that says, I can contribute or I can't contribute. It's also in line 6 called communion and has a developmental theme that says the certainty which grows out of harmony. The exaltation says the awareness of patterns that ensures correct timing, the gift of knowing when to contribute creatively. The detriment says doubt, which may engender regret even in the most ideal circumstances, uncertainty in timing and regret despite circumstances. Individual traits, I've said it a few times now, they're trying to bring through mutation to the collective. And so there has to be an awareness of the patterns of those that you're trying to contribute to in order to bring through the correct timing or to give that contribution in the right timing. However, even if you know you have the right contribution, in the detriment, if you haven't paid attention to the patterns of the others, you're likely to be off in the timing and regret bringing through your contribution because it won't be taken up and therefore it can't be mutative. Neptune sitting in gate 25, the trait of universal love, the spirit of the self, and innocence. It's in line 2 called the existentialist. Another developmental theme here that says devotion and dedication to the now. Its exaltation brings this pressure to really focus on what is rather than what could be or what has been. This is where you find the spirit of yourself. It's here in the now. This is where innocence is. It can support us with dealing with the unknowns in life. The detriment, however, is the second line, being recognized, being called out for one's selflessness. And in that recognition, it moves you out of selflessness and into strategizing how to be selfless, which is no longer just being in it. Pluto, with its qualities of inner truth and ruling the larger cycles, continues to sit in gate 60, the trait of limitation in the root center. You certainly see lots of limitation playing out in the world. It's sitting in line 6 called rigidity. Now, this brings a frequency that can help you to accept the limitations that you come up against and not try to push through them until you can see that mutation, that real change can happen. However, in the detriment, I know that I can't push through the limitation. I don't want to force it. I have to be restrained. But boy, I don't like it. It can create this real agitation and even a sense of feeling depressed. Okay, overall, we continue the incredibly strong individuality that came in last cycle through the transit field with the Sun, Earth, and 3 of the long-term transits in individual traits. Since the 4323 channel of structuring is activated for everyone, and this is the Sun, Earth position, this is going to have the strongest impact. Everyone's going to have that throat and Ajna activated, as I mentioned earlier. So looking at the Sun, Earth, and the long-term transits that are in the Ajna and the throat gives us the main keynotes and qualities that we're going to see this cycle, which is contributing unique insights in the right timing and with clear and detailed explanations in a way that shifts perspectives. Sounds good, right? Okay, wow, there's the other side too, right? What we're more likely to see in the not-self world is people trying to contribute by blurting out weird insights that no one can follow and lack the necessary detail and therefore are ignored and rejected. In some cases, rather than leaving it and taking time to regroup and wait for the right timing and until a clear explanation has formed, the blurter will refuse to let go of trying to give their explanation and increase their intensity, right? Yelling or talking louder, which is just going to create frustration and bitterness on both sides. With the gate of deafness in play, there could be a lot of, why aren't you listening to me, that plays out this cycle as well. Remember that for any of these traits, if you don't have them in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you. You may feel it moving through you. You can learn from it. But whether there's actually anything for you to do with it is according to your own strategy and authority. So just watch that it's not running you. And that brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you just want to understand the basics of the body graph, what's the black and the red about, what's the geometric shapes, a little bit about them, the background of the system, you can grab my free Human Design Basics mini course at margotgfraser.com/human-design. If you enjoyed this podcast, it always really helps me out if you give it a like and consider subscribing if it's correct for you. All right. The main theme of this cycle, again, it's that 2343 channel of individuality that impacts everyone worldwide. It's going to be the pressure to be a verbal gunslinger, as Rob would call it, and blurt out your insights. So just something to watch there. Be patient. Use your strategy and authority for timing. It's also going to bring mental activity. So it could make it harder to stay in your body and connect with your decision-making authority. At the same time, it can be really supportive for receiving insights and structuring explanations for them, which is not always easy to do. Remember that you don't control when a pulse of insight comes through, so do your best to just relax into that. Don't try and make up that you know something out of the pressure. Be open to the wacky and weird things that this channel may bring through for you or others. You might hear something that really shifts your perspective. All right, well, have a great cycle, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.